In recent memory, very few organizations have been more dysfunctional than the Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota has made the playoffs just once since the 2004-05 season, and those losing ways have given them the number one overall pick twice in the past 7 drafts. At one point, it seemed like no matter how much talent Minnesota brought in, their lack of a winning culture would find a way to hinder them, but this past season the Wolves showed some positive signs. Sure, they did finish 23-49 on the season, but they had so many injuries, and they had a coaching change midway through the year as well. However, once they were closer to full health, and Chris Finch had settled in as the new coach, Minnesota began to look like a competent basketball team. After the All-Star break, Minnesota finished the season going 16-20, and when Towns, Russell, and Edwards all played, Minnesota was 11-9 in that same span. With everyone at full health going into this season, the excitement surrounding this team is higher than it's been in a long time. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the promise of this young, talented team, and whether or not they'll be in a playoff spot at the end of the season.
Murray, inside, incredible! Oh, LeBron James with no regard for human life!
They do have a timeout, decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown, bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry!
The thing that excites me the most about Minnesota is the offensive talent they have. At full health, the Timberwolves' rotation is filled with shooters, and them having bigs that can shoot makes their offense that much more deadly. I like the idea of Beasley coming off the bench because it gives them a go-to guy in their second unit. There are already enough scorers in the starting lineup with a Russell, Edwards, and Towns, so putting Okogie and McDaniels in the starting 5 and having Beasley play more of a 6th man role will bring more balance to the team. Speaking of their second unit, Minnesota's is one of the better ones in the league. They have a good 3-and-D point guard in Patrick Beverley, an all-around wing in Taurean Prince. There's Naz Reid, who is a very skilled modern-day big. Jalen Noel is a nice two-way player. And assuming Beasley actually does come off the bench, he would be a 6th man of the year candidate. What would make Beasley such a great 6th man is the aggressiveness he plays with. Whenever he's in the game, Beasley is looking to shoot. He doesn't need much time to get off his shot because of his quick release, which explains how he was able to get off almost 9 threes a game last year. That is extremely high volume, but Malik still hit a tick under 40% of his threes, proving to everyone that he's one of the league's best in that area. Because he's such a threat from the perimeter, Beasley opens up a lot of driving lanes to the bucket, where he can show off his soft touch with a nice floater or short mid-range pull-up. In 2021, Beasley shot 44.9% from 3 to 10 feet, which is pretty good, and I imagine he'll get a lot more shots from this range in 2022. Beasley also has very underrated speed with the ball, and he's able to get a lot of easy transition buckets because of this. Because of his quickness, he's very hard to slow down when he gets a full head of steam, and when you combine that with his athleticism, he becomes a very difficult player to stop on the fast break. Minnesota's defense should be better this year, meaning more forced turnovers and more transition opportunities for Beasley. Beasley could be a spark plug off the Timberwolves bench, and I'm excited to see what kind of role they end up using him in. Another player on this team that I'm excited to watch is Anthony Edwards. Edwards got off to a bit of a shaky start in his rookie year, but he got better and better with more game experience. After the All-Star break, Edwards averaged 23.8 points, 5.3 rebounds, and 3.4 assists, doing so on solid shooting splits. As a rookie, Edwards showed off an amazing ability to score at the rim. Edwards was great at attacking closeouts, using his handle to get a defender off balance before getting by them, and leaking out in transition. Once he got to the rim, Edwards would routinely posterize defenders or use his strength to muscle through them for a layup. Edwards should also get more respect from the rest of the season now that he's no longer a rookie, which will give him a few more easy points each game. The next step for Anthony Edwards is rounding out the rest of his game. He's already an elite slasher, but every other aspect of his game is inconsistent at best. As a shooter, Edwards is pretty good from the free throw line at 77.6%, but he was terrible in the mid-range, and his three-point shot was extremely streaky. Edwards did show some really nice flashes as a passer, and this was expected because he did put that on display in college. However, Edwards' 2.9 to 2.2 assists to turnover ratio isn't anything special. I'm not trying to say that Edwards is a bad passer, because he's actually a pretty solid one, but in order for him to get to that next level, he's going to have to elevate another aspect of his game outside of slashing. On the defensive end, Edwards has shown a lot of potential, whether it's getting into the body of his man, stripping the ball from defenders, or using his athleticism to pull off some incredible blocks. Again, the issue is just being consistent. I think an offseason of improvement probably did him well, and considering he averaged just under 20 points per game as a rookie, Edwards will likely be the second leading scorer on this team behind Karl Anthony Towns. I think Karl Anthony Towns' impact is pretty obvious. He's the best three-point shooting center in the league, he's going to get buckets in the paint as well, and in the process he'll be a 25-10 guy. However, Towns' greatest impact will be his effect on D'Angelo Russell's game. Before coming to Minnesota, the best center Russell had played with was a 20-year-old Jarrett Allen, and while Allen was a solid NBA player at that point in his career, the current version of Karl Anthony Towns is a huge upgrade. Towns is arguably the best three-point shooting center in NBA history. He can put the ball on the floor and attack closeouts, and he's a great finisher around the rim as well. Essentially, Towns is the perfect pick-and-roll partner for any guard, and Russell is going to benefit quite a lot by playing with him. With the defense having to pay a lot of attention to Towns, Russell will likely get a lot of open looks in screen and roll situations. I expect Russell to be very efficient from mid-range and from the three-point line as a result, and with the amount of extra spacing that a center like Towns provides you with, I see Russell getting more easy driving lanes than he's ever had in his career. This is an especially big deal because D'Lo has actually improved as a finisher over the past 2 seasons. When you add on the fact that the rest of the roster is littered with shooters that will provide good spacing, and you start to see a situation that is perfect for D'Angelo Russell. I think that Russell will not only have his most efficient season as a scorer, but I'm confident that he'll average a career high in assists as well. Towns is the most talented player Russell has ever played with. There are lots of shooters on this team, and the young guys on this team will be great targets for Russell on the fast break. This is a very versatile roster, and D'Lo will benefit the most from that, likely resulting in the best year of his career. Last but not least, I want to talk about second-year forward Jaden McDaniels. McDaniels stands at 6'10", but you wouldn't necessarily think that when you watch him play. He moves so smoothly on the court, which allows him to attack slower players in closeout situations, and take defenders off the bounce and create shots for himself. McDaniels also gets a lot of easy buckets just by virtue of moving on offense. If McDaniels continues to cut to the basket in year 2, just like he did in year 1, he's going to receive a lot of passes from Towns, Russell, and Edwards. McDaniels won't be the first, second, or even third scoring options most times when he's on the floor, but when he does get his opportunities, he has enough skills to make something happen. Even though he won't be one of the primary players making plays and creating shots, McDaniels will still have value on the offensive end. As I mentioned, McDaniels is a willing cutter, but he's also a respectable catch-and-shoot three-point shooter as well. For someone that will probably be the 5th or 6th leading scorer on this team, McDaniels has a lot of skill, and as he adds more strength and gets more reps in the league, his role will only grow larger on the offensive end. However, where McDaniels will impact the game the most this year is on defense. With his height, length, and agility, McDaniels can truly defend 1 through 5. He has great feet, which allows him to stay with guards, and his length allows him to impact the game in a number of ways. McDaniels has incredible instincts, and when you combine that with his length, you get a player that can wreak havoc in passing lanes and get a lot of deflections. I mentioned that McDaniels has great feet, which allows him to stay in front of perimeter players, but he's able to contribute to defensive stops by using his length to alter shots. On top of that, being that he's 6'10", McDaniels can act as a rim protector as well and block shots. Jaden McDaniels gives the Timberwolves a ton of versatility, and it should be interesting to see how they use him in different lineups. Taking another look at the depth chart for Minnesota, you can imagine all the different lineup combinations available to them. If they want to play big, they could run a lineup with Towns, Reed, McDaniels, Edwards, and Russell, and if they want to play small, they could play either Prince or McDaniels at the 5, and fill the rest of the lineup with Okogie, Edwards, Beasley, and Russell. Whether the Wolves want to play big or small, they'd be putting out lineups with a lot of spacing and offensive ability. They might not have great defenders all throughout the rotation, but they have enough that opposing teams won't just be able to score at will against them. Their best defensive lineup will probably be Beverly, Noel, Okogie, Prince, and McDaniels, but in all likelihood they'll mix and match those players with the better offensive players on this team in order to have effective two-way lineups. As exciting as the Timberwolves are, they are not perfect. While Minnesota did bring in a good defender in Patrick Beverly and a solid one in Taurean Prince this offseason, the team is likely going to be average at best on that end. While being a mediocre defense this season would be a major upgrade from where they were last year, it's not something to write home about. The issue is that the best players on this team are not great defensive players, but because they are so talented offensively, they'll still be averaging a lot of minutes. Russell, Edwards, and Towns will be the 3 leading minute getters for the Wolves this year, but all 3 of them are average at best on that side of the ball. On top of that, Malik Beasley will probably average 25 to 30 minutes a night, and he too is an average defender. Minnesota will not be the 28th ranked defense like they were last year, but they won't be anything special because their best defenders are lower down in the depth chart. The Timberwolves are also a young team, and with that comes mental mistakes. The Wolves were not great at boxing out and rebounding, avoiding unforced errors on defense, or taking care of the ball last year, and that can largely be attributed to their youth. These are the growing pains that all young teams have to go through, and while these mistakes may hurt Minnesota at times this year, they will learn from them and grow in the long term. However, the biggest potential downfall with this team is something that's out of their control, and that's injuries. It's a sad thing to talk about, but the reality is some of Minnesota's better players have had injury problems the past few years. Over the past 2 seasons, Towns has missed 51 games, Russell has had injury problems throughout his career, but missed 30 games this past season, and Malik Beasley missed 35 games last year, 12 of which came from suspension, and 23 were missed because of injury. Even one of their new additions, Taurean Prince, only suited up for 41 games in 2021. Even if everything else goes right for the Wolves, the fear that a valuable player may get injured is a real one, and it could be enough to derail their season. Regardless of the outcome of this season, I expect this year to be a step in the right direction for Minnesota. I think they'll be a top 10 offense in the league. They have so many different lineups they could run, and I expect the young guys on this team to improve as the season progresses. While the progress will be fun to watch, I'm not sure if it will be enough to get them into the playoffs. This is still a young team that will make mistakes, and as I mentioned, there are some important players with injury histories on this team. With that being said, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves just missing the playoffs, finishing as the 9th seed in the West. That's going to be all for today's video. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. And with all of that being said, I'm out, and I'll see you in the next video.